All right, this presentation is going to cover the basics about economic systems that are used throughout the world. We're going to focus on the Middle East since that's the region we're studying right now. It's the first time we've done this style of presentation where there's an actual video. And one of the things you're going to notice is the fact that it's just going to keep going. I don't want it to run away from you. So anytime I'm about to change slides, I will say the words next slide. That way, if you haven't finished the notes on the page that you're on, you can pause the video, and then when you're ready to go, just unpause it and it will move on. All right, next slide. You learned about this last year, so this is a little bit of a review. But anytime you have an economic system or a country that you're figuring out what their economic system is, you kind of have to start with these three questions: what, how, who. What goods or services will be produced? How will those goods and services be produced? And who's going to use them? Who's going to consume those goods and services? And the answers to these questions really kind of drive what kind of economic system that you have. The three overall are main types of economic systems: traditional, command, and market. And there's a fourth we'll talk about in a little while. But these are the main three, and really and truly, command and market are the two really main ones. Traditional is the oldest, but it's a little bit different, which we're going to see in just a second. Next slide. In a traditional economy, basically you have a situation where all your economic decisions are based on customs, traditions, beliefs from the past. All these different decisions are made based on how they've just been made previously. And it's almost a situation where you have your parents passing down jobs to their children. People make what they make, do the same thing their parents did. Money is often not used in a traditional economy. This is done where you exchange goods and services for other goods and services. It's a term you may have heard before called bartering. Basically, it's very simple. It just means you're trading without using any money. You guys engage in this pretty much on a daily basis in the cafeteria, where you say, I'll trade you my sandwich for your cookie. Or if you want to talk about, instead of goods for goods, if you want to talk about goods for services, if you give me, your bag of Takis, I will carry your book bag around for you the rest of the day. That's a, good for service. So you guys kind of do that all the time. Also important to understand that when you talk about, when it says trading without using money, all right, we're going to be using the word trade all throughout economics. And basically all that means is moving goods from place to place. I don't want you to always think that the word trade means that, two things exchange. Paying for something is a form of trade. So trade can involve money as well. But in this case, when you talk about bartering, no money involved. Is strictly item for item or item for goods, goods for item, however you want to do it, but no money involved. You only find traditional economies today on very small scales. Villages in Africa and Asia, the Inuit you guys studied last year and talking about them in Canada, and also the Aborigines in Australia. You would find those kind of things. If you want to go American history, you can go to the Native Americans, earliest civilizations on these continents. Very, 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 very important to understand. Traditional economies are not used by modern nations. They do not work on a large scale. That's where the money thing comes in. All right, you have to have money today. So when you talk about trading between countries today, money's involved in that. It's not a direct swap. But again, important. Traditional economies not used by modern nations. So when we start talking about modern nations today, none of them using a traditional economy. Next slide. This is an example of what you might find in a traditional economy. You can see right here, this little girl, kind of front and center, is literally picking seeds out of these pine cones. And they're going to sell these seeds either for planting or possibly even, food. But when I say selling it, I'm literally mean they're going to take the seeds. We have these seeds. What goods do you have to exchange for them? So it'll be, goods for goods, goods for services. Also note that you see a lot of younger people in this picture. Again, traditional economy, often the job of the parent is passed on to the child. So you see clear examples of that with children in many spots in this picture here, working the same job that their parents would. Next slide. All right. Command, now we're at the point where we're talking about some of the economic systems that are used today by real in modern countries. In a command system, all the economic decisions are made by the government, every one of them. All right. They own the property. They set the price of the goods. They determine how much you get paid, the wages of the worker, what plans are going into effect, planning what is going to be done. Literally, the government tells you or can tell you what job you're going to do, where you're going to do it. All right. It doesn't work. It's not been very successful. These countries that are using these pure command or heavy command systems aren't very successful. And the reason for that is because it doesn't allow for any innovation or creative new ideas. All right. The people don't get to contribute their own ideas to go and improve the economy. It's all done by this government control. Doesn't make any money, and it just hasn't been very, very successful. Next slide. It's also very, very hard to live under a command economy, especially for the regular people, the citizens and things like that. The upper level of countries that use command economies, the upper level of the people are going to be getting their money anyway. But the regular citizens in a command economy don't have very, very good lives. And that's a big reason why, if you go around, there really aren't any pure command economies in the world today. You got some countries that are close. Cuba and North Korea today are very close to a pure command economy. And then you also have former Soviet Union, former East Germany, those places that are no longer countries. They were very close to pure command economies. But notice that you have former Soviet Union and former East Germany. They don't exist anymore. And a big reason for those collapses and why they don't exist anymore and why they changed was economics. They weren't making enough money. Their economies collapsed and they were forced to do something different. All of these countries, though, in that list had the same type of government. They're communist. Communist basically means the government is in control of everything. They make all the decisions. And one of the sayings that goes along with communism is the idea that everyone works to the best of their ability and receives based on their need. All right. So it doesn't matter what job that you do. You need to do it to the best that you can, regardless. You're just expected to. But you get paid based on what you actually need. So if you have, and as an example, if you had a guy or girl that was a doctor, a very complicated and stressful job, and they were very, very good at their job, all right, they would be expected to do that regardless of what they're getting paid. But you have somebody who has a more, less stressful job, less complicated job, one that doesn't require the education or anything like that, but they have, more people in their family that they have to pay to help with and everything like that. They're going to get more money because they have more needs. Doesn't matter what job that you do. It matters what you need. And big problem with this, it just goes against human nature. Communism goes against human nature because of the fact that we expect if we do a better job or work longer or whatever, that we should get paid more for that. And communism doesn't really go with that. Next slide. Speaking of pure command economies, you can see right here, this is a picture of from North Korea. This is actually not the current leader. This is the current leader's dad. This is Kim Jong-il. You're not going to find on this country, on this planet, you're not going to find a country that's closer to being a pure command economy than North Korea. It is completely controlled by the government. We're going to talk about them when we get out to East Asia in a couple of months. But it is not a very successful economy. They're very, very closed off, and their people suffer because of it. It just doesn't work. Next slide. Now you've got market. Now market's the exact opposite of command. Flip the coin. It's on the other side. All right. Instead of the government making the decision, this one time you have the people. All right. Regular people. They're making all the decisions. The buyers, the sellers, everybody that's just regular citizens, they make all the decisions. Government doesn't have any control over the economy in a pure market system. Private citizens answer all those economic questions. And it makes money. It makes a lot of money. All right. Don't get it wrong. And it sounds great. That part sounds great. You think, well, it's making money. Where's the catch? Well, when you have a pure, truly free market economy, you don't have the government involved anywhere at all. That creates some problems because there's no laws in place to make sure that the goods and services that are being produced are safe. Things like food, medicine, housing material. There's literally been, in this country, there was a insulation that was called asbestos that used to be put in all the walls because it not only did a good job as an insulation, but it also didn't burn. So it actually helped prevent when you had a fire in an apartment or something like that, it helped prevent the fire from spreading. Well, they find out later, long-term exposure to asbestos causes cancer. All right. Now it's illegal to do that. But without laws in place, you wouldn't be able to protect your people. There's also, in a pure market economy, there wouldn't be any laws to protect workers from unfair bosses. All right. Bosses would decide what workers get paid. They wouldn't have to live up to, contracts or anything like that. It would be a situation where, you could, agree to work for somebody and they say, we'll pay you, $15 an hour. And then you come back when it's time to actually get paid. They've changed it and they say, actually, we changed our mind. We're going to pay you $5 an hour. Without government regulations or laws, there's nothing to stop them from doing that. All right. So that's one of the dangers with market. You can make money. People can make money, but there's nothing there to protect people either. All right. So both pure command and pure market have their problems. And that's why you don't have pure of either. You don't have pure market or pure command. Next slide. This is a real quick slide about the index of economic freedom. And you can see on this, if you look at the key in the bottom left, the greener the color of the country on the map, the more economically free it is. If you get towards the more orange or red, you're going to have a lot more government control, almost to the point that they literally, for the ones that are marked red, they literally use the word repressed, and that literally means to hold down the rights of the people. But you can see the United States and most of Europe are kind of in that mostly free area. You go down to Australia and New Zealand, you've got very, very free. The area that we're studying in the Middle East, if you look, you can see Turkey, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Iran. You're going to be moving around in that moderately free to mostly unfree area, and you can't really see it because it's so small. Israel's in there in that mostly free area, but very tiny on the map. Next slide. All right. So there's no countries that are purely command or purely market. So what's the word? And this is that fourth one I mentioned. That's the fourth economic system that I mentioned way back at the beginning. Most countries, democratic or not, but most countries have some characteristics of both systems. They've got some market and they've got some command. And no need to make a complicated word for it. We just call it mixed. It's a mixed economy. All right. And this is important. Make sure you need to put a star in your notes next to this or whatever. Mixed economies combine a market economy's ability to make money with a command economy's ability to protect the consumer. All right. So you can make money like we talked about in a market economy, but you also make sure that you have a situation where you're covering for the possibility of something like the asbestos example I gave earlier, where there's a product that comes out, but it's dangerous for people to use, then that becomes illegal. So the command economy element, that government control protects the consumer. All right. Mixed economy is kind of like saying the best of both systems. And there's a scale that we're going to talk about called the economic continuum that runs from a 0 to 100, with 0 being pure command and 100 being pure market. we're going to be rating countries based on that. So the further to the right are closer to 100, the more free the economies are. And then closer to 0, that's the more, under that government control command thing. Most of the very, very successful countries in the world can be found in that 60 to 70 some odd range on the economic continuum. So mostly market with some command in there to kind of help in certain situations. Right? This is important. We understand that when we talk about all the modern countries in the world today, please understand every single one of them is mixed. Nobody's a pure command. Nobody's a pure market. Everybody all the modern countries today are mixed. All right, we know that. When you talk about a country, though, you're going to talk about more about which way do they lean. Are they closer to that, that 100, that market side? Are they on that side of the spectrum? Or are they all the way at the other end and closer to that 0 side, that pure command? That's how we're going to describe these countries. So when we talk about these different countries and we say it's a market country, we know it's mixed. We already know it's mixed. It's a matter of identifying, oh, wait, it's mixed, but it's closer to the market side. The United States would be a perfect example of a country. Yes, mixed economy. We have government regulations, but we have mostly freedom to be able to make products and to set prices and things like that. So we're definitely mixed, and we're definitely closer to that market side. So we are considered a market economy. You get a country like North Korea, like I said, where the government controls everything. They're way, way, way down there at the end, but they have to have a little bit of market in there in order to trade with other countries. But they are so far down that end that we call them a command economy, even though technically all countries are mixed. So please make sure you understand it. So on tests or quizzes or anything like that, if you're asked a specific country, what economic system do they use? Understand, mixed is understood. We understand that that's part of it. We're asking whether or not it's going to be command or whether or not it's market. That's the end of the slide. I'd love some feedback and let me know how this worked for you, what did work, what didn't work. Help me out. Let's make this better. Peace.